In this video, I'm going to share with you how to maintain tent harmony in winter camping. When you're going out in winter camping with someone, whether you're doing a backpack, a ski trek, whatever you might be doing, one of the big challenges is you're in a tent together in the dark a lot. It's cold. It's a little more uncomfortable or a lot more uncomfortable than the summer. How do you handle that? In this video, I'm going to give you 6 little pointers and take you to one of my expeditions to show you some of the challenges that you might face. The first thing to establish is who does what. So oftentimes, a lot of people will be very good at one specific job than the other person. So when you're going on a camping expedition or just in the winter, this can be a real challenge because you might discover, oh, I'm better at setting up the tent, or oh, I'm better at cooking. That seems really great for the moment, but over time that actually becomes a real problem because people can become resentful and say, you know, this is a lot more work than that person's doing, and it just happens. So one of the things that you want to do is establish who does what. However, point number 2, swap duties nightly if you can. Because what that does is that spreads the load, whether you're doing the boiling and cooking or the melting snow water or digging the extra trench or whatever you do. It makes such a big difference in order to make your experience a lot more enjoyable. I talk about that a little bit in my book, Antarctic Adventure Expedition 1. I'll get into that in a moment, but definitely if you have shared tent space and shared equipment, the best and easiest thing to do is swap duties, and that will make things a lot smoother. Of course, you have to remember, oh, I took out the trash last week. No, you don't want to get into that. That's going to become a real problem. The third point is make sure you do everything you can to level out the tent space when you're sleeping on snow, because there is nothing worse than you get all snuggled up and the tent is cockeyed a little bit and you are the person rolling onto someone else, or even the worst scenario, somebody rolling on you, it's squishing your sleeping bag, you're covered and like smashed against the wall of the tent, you're freezing at 2 a.m. and you start to go like, I need to kind of knock this person out. Yeah, you don't want to do that. So to avoid those problems at 2 or 3 a.m., you really want to focus on the tent leveling. And this is something you do way in advance, because when you show up and you decide where you're going to put your camp, immediately start working on getting your shovel out, getting your big grain scoop, scraping that place and doing everything you can whenever possible to level it out. Because it doesn't take too much imbalance to actually start sliding off of your sleeping pad and rolling onto the next person. It can be really, really irritating. The 5th point I want to talk about is make sure you give people space. Now hang on, I'm going to give you a story at the end that's really drives home the point of this, so just stay tuned. But the 5th point is make sure you give each other space. When you get in your tent, no matter how big the tent is, you're going to be practically sitting on top of each other, and that's just the nature of how this all works. But if you can do everything you can to be very conscious, to not be elbowing somebody or bumping somebody with your butt or throwing your sleeping bag around, it will make your experience a lot nicer, because those tiny little crumbs of irritation can pile into a huge problem that way down the line you might actually have a big blow up. And it's all because you just tend to write something down, you just throw your pen down, and you don't even think about it. But that could totally irritate somebody. So being conscious of what you're doing is a big, big deal. I talk about that in my book, Adventure Expedition 1. I think it's on like page 95 or thereabouts. Yes. Yeah, social courtesy. By the way, this book is available on Kindle, and I think the Apple Store as well. Links in the description. So if you don't want to pay for the full price print book, there is an ebook edition. But social courtesy. One of the overlooked items on a team expedition is maintaining common social courtesies. People might become lax in their pleases and thank yous for simple action. The deterioration of personal relationships is slow. Once festering irritation sets in, it can be difficult or impossible to repair. And on page 97, I talk about point number 6, being patient. Being patient is super important because you're uncomfortable, they're uncomfortable. The point is to be out enjoying the experience, whether you're climbing a mountain or doing whatever you might be doing. But the key point here is focus on courtesy at all times. You might be this group of tough people, former SEALs, Delta operator, whatever. If you don't follow the please and thank you, I promise you're going to have problems down the line. It's a big, big deal. And now I'm going to take you to my expedition to show you what it's like actually in the woods to talk about this, and I'll share my story about somebody who experienced bad courtesy at the end. And for tentmate harmony, not having to roll on each other all night, even though you're both understanding, it does get annoying when I'm accidentally crashing all over Terry because I'm on the uphill side and squishing him against a tent wall, and then of course he's against a tent wall, which compresses his sleeping bag, makes him cold, and then he has to wake up here and scoot over, and then I got to roll back, and it's this struggle all night long. So especially in snow areas, you do have the option of really adjusting the landscape to suit your purpose. So if you have a general slope, we have stomped the heck out of the high spots and even shoveled it just to make it a little bit better, because you have to live with that all night. And once you're rolling and struggling and set your tent up, you're not going to want to change that out. The next point I want to show you here is we did end up with a big chunk of snow on the other end of the tent. We did move the tent quite a bit farther along. So if that snow does break loose at night, it doesn't hit the door. It could break a pole. It could hit Terry in the head. I mean, all sorts of things could happen that are not desirable. So you definitely want to make sure and scan the trees. Now, because of where we ended up having to put our tent, so we're a quarter mile from the road, and that snow slop there, what I did is I shook the tree as hard as I could for almost a minute, and it didn't break loose. So hopefully nothing will happen there. As you can see there, wandering around in the woods at sub-zero temperatures or minus 18 degrees Celsius, it is a real challenge, but as you can see, just leveling out that tent is a tough activity, but it is well worth the effort and sweat to make sure it is as good as you can. So here's my story that I'm going to share with you. This story is actually by Dr. Randall Peters, this book, Journeys to the Edge. If you want to read the craziest stuff, this one is super good. Here he is. I need a little bit more light. But Dr. Randall Peters, in his book, Journeys to the Edge, talks about he went to the North Pole and he ended up with a tent mate on an expedition team that absolutely hated Dr. Peters. The dude, for whatever reason, had it in for Randy, and he was just like, God, is this guy gonna slash my throat at night? For whatever reason, he couldn't stand Americans, couldn't stand whatever. At the end of the expedition, the guy decided, well, you're okay, Mr. Peters, but holy moly. So this is something to really consider, is when you go on an expedition and you haven't gone with the people that you're going to be going with, there is a real risk that sometimes irritations happen, and it's a real consideration. So just a couple of factors to consider when you're out in winter camping and even summer camping is maintain that tent harmony. Check out these books in the links below. Adventure Expedition 1, that's where I share how to do all these things and more, including managing social courtesy. And check out Dr. Peters' book. This dude like base jump off Half Dome and El Cap and went to the North Pole. I mean, totally crazy. My name's Aaron Lensdow. I'm a polar explorer and professional adventurer. Please like and comment on the video and subscribe to the channel so you can get videos like this to enjoy your experience outdoors. Thank you very much.